everybody, it's Alyce-Kay at Threshold of Hineni in Sweetwater, Tennessee, and I am working on my mom's journal, which I finally got the cover on, and I just have some last things that I need to add to it, some journaling cards, and I've got some note cards and stuff. Let's see, I'm going to set this aside, and I'm not sure if I need coffee dyed paper or not. We will see, and hopefully I will get some baubles on the bottom here. I just have like 45 minutes till I have to work, so I've got a timer that's going to go off. And what I thought I would talk about today is not like super spiritual. There are some spiritual things in there, but mostly I just felt like sharing some memories with you of a trip that I took one time. It was 2013. I had not yet met Bill, and sort of an unusual and not great experience that sent me on this trip. Oh, that looks pretty, doesn't it? Or should I do this one? This one says, pursue perfection but accept excellence. That looks pretty with this here. Oh, what about this though? That's nice, isn't it? Actually, I think I like that the most. Okay, so that's what's going to go there. So that can be some more writing space because, you know, you can write inside the card and outside and everything else. Okay. And I need to do something on here. So anyway, yeah, it was like not a really good experience, but the trip ended up being really, really good. It was very, very last minute. I mean, like throw stuff in the car and leave at 5 o'clock in the morning, or maybe even earlier. I think actually it was more like 3 in the morning. And I had basically 5 days to drive from Minnesota to, you know, of course, anytime that I'm recording, there's like all kinds of sirens and stuff. Sorry, I like to pray when there's sirens because it usually means that somebody needs help, right? And so somebody needs prayer. What was I saying? Anyway, I had 5 days to get to California from Minnesota, and I was driving by myself, no planning ahead of time because it was very last minute, and like I said, not under the best circumstances. I didn't have a lot of money, and so that was also really difficult. So like I didn't have money for hotel, and even, you know, like I normally, if I traveled up before then, I usually would try to get like, you know, $35 deals through Hotwire or something, you know, and you can get really nice hotel deals through places like that, Hotwire and some of those others that are like that. And by the way, one thing that I learned about that, because I did a lot of Hotwire back in the day, one thing I learned is your best deals are going to be in big cities. Okay, forget about the small places. And also 3-star is great, you know, Sheraton, Marriott, you know, all those really, really great. I've had suites for $35 through those. But what's not great is 4-star, because 4-star is usually you have to pay a whole bunch of money for parking. Okay, and yeah, you have to pay a whole bunch of money for parking. Like one place we had to pay $28 for parking, and you know, here we were staying there, you know, because we had gotten a really good deal through Hotwire for $35. So anyway, yeah, and we didn't know ahead of time that it was $28 for parking. I didn't think to call and ask. Anyway, anyway, on this trip in 2013, maybe it was 2012. Actually, I think it was 2012. I didn't have money even for $35 places, and so a friend had suggested that I spend the night in Walmart parking lots. And to be honest, I was terrified of the idea at first. She told me, we have a golf club in the car with you, and put a man's hat on the dashboard, so it looks like you've got a man traveling with you who maybe is like just in the restroom or something. And she said, park up close to the front of the store. She's a 24-hour store, which of course I also wanted to be able to go to the bathroom and stuff. And so I did that. I called Walmart in, I don't know, Oklahoma or Texas someplace. And they said, yeah, they basically have a policy that people can stay up to 3 days unless there's an ordinance or a law against it wherever they are, which some places, like I think California, I think all of California, it's against the law, so you can't do that. I could be wrong, but I think that's what it is. So anyway, so I spent the nights in Walmart parking lots, which ended up being a great thing. And like for the next couple years, whenever I traveled and like I had to take my kids, to meet up with their dad and stuff, I stayed in Walmart parking lots. I loved it. It was just totally awesome. I slept very, very comfortably in my car, and there's a security guard going by like every 15 minutes or so, and you've got access to a restroom, and and I always bought something, every time that I went in I bought something and stuff. But it was really nice. I really was happy with the way that whole idea turned out. But the day that I left, okay, I don't know if you know very much about interstates in the US or anything, but Interstate 35 goes from the Twin Cities, or maybe north of there, but the Twin Cities all the way through, I took it from the Twin Cities all the way to Wichita, and then I turned west at Wichita, and went from there. But it's called Tornado Alley. And this was during tornado season. It was April 15th, and I remember because that is one of my daughter's birthday, and my dad was a CPA, so April 15th is kind of a big deal to us. And anyway, so I'm driving, and there's a tornado, like just a few miles to the east of me the whole way. I mean, like every time that I stopped at a gas station, I had a very, very hard time opening my car door to get out, and because the wind was so strong. And I'd go in, and everybody there is gathered around the TV watching the weather reports, and I'm just basically trying to outrun this thing. It was really scary. And when I got to Wichita and turned west, there was, for like about an hour, tornado sirens the whole way for about an hour, and the sky was green and the clouds were really low, and it was just like, and what do you do when you're out, driving through fields and stuff? What if there was a tornado? Where do you go? So it was like, but it was kind of weird because even though it was scary, I wasn't scared. Does that make sense? I just really felt confident that God was with me and was going to take care of me. I just really didn't feel, I wasn't taking this trip out of folly or anything. I had no choice. And, and I just had to take this trip. And, so, that's just, there it is. You have to do this. And, so I don't know. I just felt like God was taking care of me. And, I made it into kind of a retreat, and that's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, because we've been talking a little bit about, like, how do you find the time to spend with God when you're so busy? And I think a lot of it is about making the time, looking for the opportunities. Like, this drive, I could have just taken this drive. Do I want lace? No, I don't. I could have just taken this drive, and actually the situation was rather upsetting, And so I could have just spent the whole time crying and being bitter and upset, but instead I did what I had been doing quite a bit at that point, which was I had a whole bunch of sermon CDs from the church that we went to, and I took a bunch of them with me and I listened to them, and it turned into kind of a retreat for me. Okay, so isn't that cute? There's a little tab to pull it out with and everything. So it was like a retreat for me, and I actually ended up listening in, I don't know, like 24 hours worth of driving, I think it was. I ended up listening to just like 3 sermons or something over and over and over, because God really led me in which sermons to listen to. I had asked him to. As I flipped through sermons, I had said, God, show me which ones to listen to. And he really led, and the ones that he led me to helped me so much with the situation that I was in, for one thing. And and also with just life in general. But it was like, I needed to really make some changes in my priorities, in my values, really. A lot of it was that I needed to make changes in my values. And I want to put some coffee dyed paper on the back of this. And, oh yeah, that'd be cool. Lace. Lace would be so cute. Okay. Oh, it smells so good. This is Pike's Place coffee from Starbucks. Isn't that funny? I know what kind of coffee, but it's the coffee that my husband drinks. What was I saying? So it was like a retreat for me, and I would stop. I had to complete this trip. I had to get to California in 5 days because I had to work. I was a transcriptionist at that time, and so I was able to take my work with me. That was really nice, and I had managed to get some time off so that I could drive for 5 days, but then I had to be back to working. And so I'm going to keep that out. So I had a little bit of time to just kind of, if I saw this really beautiful mesa in New Mexico, way out in the distance, and I decided to see if I could get to it. And so I just, turned off my GPS and drove towards it. And then after getting close enough that I could get some really great pictures and, sitting for a while and stuff, then I just turned on my GPS and headed back on my way again. But I did a lot of stopping too, just to stop and sometimes to pray, although mostly I was able to do that while I was driving. I would stop the CD because there was just something I really needed to talk with God about. But mostly I would stop to write things down and to journal. I'm really big, you've probably figured out, on journaling. I think that it's just really an important way of reinforcing what God's telling you, and also just taking it seriously and making sure that you're not going to just forget. But it's also a way, how I was saying earlier in another video, that we all learn lessons and maybe we apply them, but then other things happen and we learn other things and we forget that particular lesson, and and so we have to learn it again. And so I think that if you write things down, you're less likely to forget those things. You may forget them, but you've got them written down. So if you go back and read your journal, then you'll be reminded of it. And God has a really awesome way of reminding me, at least, to go back and read a journal. It's like he'll just put this craving on my heart to go back and either just read journals in general or look for a specific one. And I'll be reading along and it becomes very apparent why God was having me read that because there's like something that I really, really needed to hear. And so I think it's really important to write things down. So I was writing down a lot of stuff. I was stopping and writing things down and praying and crying, and just God was not really so much crying over my situation, even though it was one that really, it would have been totally appropriate to cry over, but crying because God was just really close to me and really teaching me things and showing me things that I needed to change, especially in my values and in who I was allowing to call the shots in my life. And it was just really good. Anyway, okay, so to kind of backtrack a little bit, because it's kind of fun, this is a neat story. The way that I ended up getting all those CDs was we had found this church because I had started a library for abused women and people who work with them. And one of the books that I had bought but hadn't read, it had just been really recommended to me, so I had brought it up to Minnesota one time to read. It was, when I turned it over to look at who the pastor was, it was by a pastor of a church that was like 10 miles from where we were staying at my daughter's house. And so we went to visit, and this church was just, oh my word, it was such a good church. And the preaching was awesome. You know how I said, like, taking 3 years to go through Colossians? It was that church. It was like just amazing. And really deep study. And very insightful. And it was really where I first was exposed to grace. Because that was just really not part of my church upbringing. Grace. And so, and I'm not saying that in a blaming way. I'm saying it because, if you don't know about grace, if you haven't experienced grace, you can be saved and not have experienced, you've experienced grace from God, but you haven't experienced grace that you can give to other people. And you haven't experienced it from other people. And that you don't have anything to give. If you have not experienced grace, you don't have that to give. And so, it's like, yeah, it just, people hadn't experienced it, and so they didn't have it to give. And so where I grew up, I'm not saying my family, but like the whole church setting and everything, it was just like really, really not full of grace. But it was a wonderful church. So anyway, so we went to this church, and when we decided to come up there another time, we decided that was the church we were going to go to while we were there. And we ended up actually moving there for a few years. But one Sunday on the way to church, I was asking God, okay, I've got this much tithe money. What do you want me to do? And he said that I should buy some CDs, which I assumed, sermon CDs, which I assumed was, like from my library or something, for other people. It's like your tithe is supposed to be, to me, I'm having so much trouble with this one. To me, my tithe is not for myself. My tithe is to help other people or to give to the church or whatever. It's like, so I just assumed that these CDs were to help other people. And when I got there, one of the announcements that was up on the screen before church was that there was a sale in the church bookstore, and the CDs, the sermon CDs, were all 75% off. And they were inexpensive anyway, like $1 something. And so anyway, so I went in and I just said, okay, God, I have no idea what to get. I said, you're just going to have to show me. And so it's like I'm walking through the bookstore, and of course with this kind of sale, it's like really full and crowded and stuff. And ooh, that wasn't very good. There we go. That's better. And I'm walking through there, and there's like such a crowd of people and everything. And God just started showing me, okay, get this set, you know, like all of Philippians, I think, and all of such and such, and this one on foundations, and blah blah blah, you know. And he just showed me like which ones to take, and I thought, okay, this is going to be like way more than how much he had told me to spend. So when I got up to the cash register, I said, can you like do a few and then give me a total, then do a few and give me a total, so that I, you know, don't overspend. And she said, oh sure, that's fine, and everything. And so she did that, and it came out to within pennies, a little tiny bit under the amount of money that God had told me to spend. So I had all these CDs, and then I ended up later, when we ended up going to that church regularly, I ended up working in the bookstore once a month, and so I got like a really nice discount, and so I got even more CDs. So I have like something like 300 CDs from that church. I mean, it's like really good because their preaching is just awesome. Anyway, so that was what I had taken with me. So it was a really, really good time, because it was just God and me. And, you know, we had some adventures. You know, I had never stayed in a Walmart parking lot before, and so I really didn't know what to expect, and it really actually ended up being just wonderful. It was great. You know, I called ahead at each Walmart to make sure that it was okay to stay there, and find out if they had a specific place that they wanted people to stay in. And you know, and I'd get there. Sometimes I didn't really plan ahead until like, you know, that evening or something, and I'd be like, okay, I think I'm going to be ready to stop in an hour. So I would stop, and I had an atlas that had like all the Walmart phone numbers and addresses and everything in it, and so that really helped for planning. And I think it had them all marked on the maps too and stuff, and so that was just really good. Oh, I think I've got a card with my dad's favorite verse here. I wonder if it'll fit. Oh, I bet it won't. It's gonna be too big. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. That's my dad's favorite verse. That would have been good right there. Oh well, sorry, Dad. One of these little ones is what's going to have to fit in there, I think. Yeah, I can add some paper to the back of it so she can write on it, and so it'll be stiffer. What was I saying? Anyway, yeah, I had all these great CDs. I think that's what I was saying. And so, you know, it was just like I made this trip. That's the point of what I was saying. I made this trip into a retreat. I didn't plan it. I'd let God plan it. I had like a whole bunch of CDs in a shoebox, basically, and I stuck those in the car, and I just said, God, show me which ones to listen to. And I would, you know, pull them out and start flipping through them really quickly, and God would say, listen to this one. And it was wonderful. It was just a real time of growing, and that whole trip was really good. I stayed with my parents for, I think it was like about 5 weeks or so. So I got to see my daughter in California and my grandsons, and spend a lot of time with my parents and a little bit of time with friends, and especially with a friend that I hadn't seen for quite a while, who's now moved to Texas. So I'm really glad that I got to see her then. You know, and it was just a good time. But that's one of those things, you know, too, you guys, when something really, really difficult that just seems like it could be the end of the world happens, God can turn it into one of the deepest, most precious experiences that you've ever had. And that's how that whole trip was for me. It was just fantastic. It was just really, really good. So anyway, so I wanted to share about that. Just kind of some funny things from that trip. When one time there wasn't any Walmart anywhere nearby. It was in Arizona, and I had remembered that when I was a kid, my family had stopped at this place, I don't know what it's called, but it's in Arizona, where a meteor hit the earth, and there's like this huge hole where this meteor hit. And so I wanted to see it, but by the time that I got there, you know, it was dark, and there weren't any Walmarts at all, like for hours. And so I thought, well, you know, there was a truck stop there, and you're not supposed to spend the night in truck stops. So I just thought, well, I'll just take a short nap. You know, I won't spend the night, but I'll just take a short nap because I think that's acceptable. And so I went into the bathroom and, you know, kind of, you know, brushed my teeth and stuff because I hadn't done that all afternoon or maybe even all day. And it was just like really scary because like I was the only person there. There was no one there, and it was pitch black dark. And I just thought, no, I can't do this. This is just way too scary. I'm just going to drive until I find a Walmart. Well, I was really, really tired. And so a friend of mine out in California who was kind of keeping tabs on me while I drove, there were several people who were, she was still awake and she would be up pretty late. So she stayed up with me and we talked quite a bit on the phone and everything. Well, I had to go to the bathroom so badly at this that I finally pulled off at an exit, and there weren't any stores or anything. This is like in Arizona where there's nothing. It's probably desert. And anyway, so I got out of the car, and it's pitch black dark, which is so scary, and you can't see anything at all, not a single thing. And I stepped out of my car, and I was gonna just like pee on the side. I didn't know what else to do, and I heard a rattlesnake. I'm sure it was a rattlesnake. It sounded very, very much like a rattlesnake. And so I jumped back in the car and I drove until Kingman, where there was a Walmart, and I spent the night there. So that was just kind of a funny, kind of scary experience. I don't think these cards are going to fit in here. They're too big. Unless I paper clip them in or something. That's too... Oh, this is pretty. That would be nice. Is that a card? Yeah, that's a card. Cool. It says pursue perfection but accept excellence. I think I read that to you guys already, right? I'm just putting in like note cards from my collection to give her more writing space because she writes a lot in her journals, so that's why I don't have like a whole bunch of pockets and stuff. I just want her to be able to have plenty of space for... Oh, there's a vase with flowers to go with the vase with flowers. I just want her to have plenty of space for writing. That's blank. Will this fit there if I do a paper clip? Yeah, let's do this one here. Okay, so I think I'm going to do a paper clip. And I was there for Mother's Day, so I got to take my mom and dad out to lunch. Oh, I don't have any big purple ones, so I'm going to have to do a small purple one. Or maybe I want... Yeah, I do want to embellish one. Okay, sorry you guys that I'm so indecisive here. You know what? Nope, there's not time. I'm going to have to work pretty soon. So, we're just going to use one of these cool little dudes here. I've got these fun spiral ones. What I was mumbling to myself about was that I wanted to embellish a paper clip with beads dangling from it, but I have to work pretty soon, so I really don't have time for that. Maybe I'll put this up at the top, actually. So I don't know. Oh, so I was there for Mother's Day, so that was kind of cool. I got to spend Mother's Day with my mom and dad. And yeah, so, and then driving home, I went a different route. I went through Colorado. I only had 3 days to get home. That's nice, the green with the green. I only had 3 days to get home, so I had to kind of hightail it. So I went through Tahoe and I went through Colorado, which was amazing. I went through, I had to stop for gas at this one place, and it was incredibly gorgeous. It was just this beautiful, beautiful scenery and nobody around hardly. There was a small town with a gas station, and there was, you know, one of those roundabouts. And I got to the gas station and I said, "Where is this? Where are we?" And the guy just looks at me like, "Are you crazy?" And he said, "This is Vail." It's like, you know, Vail is where everybody goes skiing, and it's just really nice. And boy, I could see why people like to go skiing there. It was absolutely just fantastically beautiful. Okay, so this has 2 pockets actually. I think that one would be cute there, if it fits. Oh, it won't fit. Okay, we're gonna have to use one of these guys. That'll be kind of nice across from that, maybe. Yeah, I think so. Okay. Yeah, so that was pretty, and then I got to stop and see my Aunt Bernice, who I hadn't seen in many, many years, and so it was just really, really special to get to see her. And